Και πάμε να κλείσουμε με κάτι διαφορετικό, με μια αποκλειστική συνέντευξη στην οποία έδωσε ο Αϊνστάιν της Wall Street στην Ναυτεμπορική και συγκεκριμένα στην Όλγα Αντωνιάδη. Πάμε λοιπόν να παρακολουθήσουμε τι είπε στην Ναυτεμπορική ο Πίτερ Τάκμαν.
Σήμερα έχω τη χαρά να συνομιλήσω με έναν άνθρωπο που αποτελεί ζωντανό σύμβολο της Wall Street. Ο Πίτερ Τάκμαν, γνωστός παγκόσμιος ως Αϊνστάιν της Wall Street, έχει ζήσει δεκαετίες έντασης, αλλαγών και ιστορικών στιγμών στο πάτωμα του χρηματιστηρίου της Νέας Υόρκης.
You are well known as the Einstein of Wall Street. How did you get that nickname?
So there was a woman who was, you've been here for a little while, so you know you're one of the media people here on the floor. So we have CNBC, we have Fox News, we have a number of news agencies on the floor. There was a woman who used to work on the floor for CNBC. Her name was Erin Burnett. She's now at CNN. She has a show called Out Front with Erin Burnett. And she used to hang out outside with this other gentleman named Mark Haynes, so you'll see a picture of him when you walk down the stairs. He was here for many, many years. He passed away young. And so they would always joke about the way I looked and my hair. They would sit outside and smoke a cigarette in the morning. They would always say, if I have a good hair day, the market would be up. And so anyway, I always sort of had this look like Einstein. And so she named me Einstein. And so when I started going on social media and creating a brand, we came up with the name of the Einstein of Wall Street. So.
Very interesting. Could you share some of the most intense or unforgettable moments you have experienced on the trading floor of the New York Stock Exchange?
Absolutely. So there's a lot of things. First of all, I love what I do, so that's why I'm still working, and I work with my son. My son is my partner here on the floor. In the old days, there used to be 70 of these market-making firms, and they were all family-owned businesses. Now we're down to 3. So the nature of the business with technology has changed a lot. I've lived through, in my career here, through all of the crashes, right? So we've had probably 5, 6 crashes in history, which are very fast and furious sell-offs. The first one being 1929, right? I was not here for that. I'm not that old. And then there was probably one during World War II, but since my career, we had a crash in 1987. In 2000, there was an internet bubble. In 2007, 2008, there was a great financial crisis. Then there was COVID, and then recently, this past year, there was sort of a mini crash when Mr. Trump announced the tariffs. And so, those are days where the market is completely out of hand, and it's incredibly aggressively selling off. And so those are days where there's a lot of fear in the market and anxiety. Each crash has had different components, right? The crash of '87 was a technology problem. The crash of 2000 was an internet bubble. The crash of 2008 was a predatory lending mortgage crisis. And then, so each one of the crashes has had different components that made it happen. Each one of those crashes that I traded through were some of the wildest times on Wall Street, when the market lost more than 20-30% of its value in one day. Right? So, when people lose money, it's uncomfortable. So I would say some of those days, the time of COVID was an extraordinary. So the crash of '08, tens of thousands of people lost their jobs. Many companies went out of business. So if you worked here, and when you would leave the work at the end of the day, you could see people walking down the street with their boxes, having been fired from their job. Right? 50,000 people were laid off. So that was an unpleasant time. But on the floor, I would say the crash of '87 was the biggest, in my opinion, sort of the most sort of scary time, because literally stocks were down 30, 40, 50%, and people went bankrupt. The crash of '29, which I wasn't around for, people jumped out of windows. I mean, there's a recent book written about it, where literally you would walk down the street in New York, and bodies were falling out of the window. People were killing themselves because they had been very rich, and then in one day they became paupers. But anyway, so wild and crazy markets have been some of the greatest times. There were times where I did very well for my customer, right, where we had a really good day, and so those were obviously exciting days for me. There were times when during COVID I got very sick. I ended up getting meningitis. I was given 3-4 months to live, so I had a very bad time there. So that was a hard time on Wall Street. So there have been good times, when great things have happened in my career. There were bad times when the market sold off. In the recent years, I've sort of pivoted my career. I still trade here every day, but I started this social media platform, which is just exploding, right? At the moment, it's completely crazy, and so that's been very exciting. It's offered me, the ability to run an academy, teaching young people to trade. It's called Wall Street Global Trading Academy. We have tens of thousands of students all over the world. So that's been exciting. I have 2 podcasts and 2 YouTube channels, so I get to interview fantastic people. All kinds of stories, stories about mental illness, stories about art, stories about finance, stories about food, all kinds of different things. So that's exciting for me. And, I like to interact with humans, so it's given me a possibility to do almost anything I like.
That's really nice. What is one advice would you give to young people?
So the best advice I would give to young people is, and I say this, I've said this in so many interviews, but we are the greatest consumer generation of all time. We love to buy things, stuff, right? I'm sure you have a closet full of stuff. I have a closet full of stuff. And most of the things we buy go down in value the minute you buy them, right? And as a young person, I wish I had been told this, but the stock market historically goes up. There have been a few sell-offs and a few bumps in the road, but historically, net, over time, it goes up. And so, if one changes the mindset as opposed to just buying stuff, and instead they just buy stocks, then they can create a portfolio, create an investment portfolio and a legacy that way. So there's a number that goes around that if a young person at the age of 20 were to put, so you know what the S&P 500 is?
Yes.
It's a basket of 500 stocks that you trade here, right? It gives you exposure to all the different parts of the market. Consumer staples, energy, luxury, retail, whatever. So if you buy, and you can buy the S&P as one stock, it's called SPY, SPY. And so if you buy $250 of the SPY every month from the age of 18 to the age of 60, right, you will have $1.4 million, just passive investing. So it's just a matter of think about how many times we spend $10 here, $20 here, that just goes up in the air. Or we buy an extra sneaker, or we buy an extra iPhone, or it's just a matter of putting money to work for you. Wealthy people are wealthy because they let their money make money for them. So that's the kind of the mindset that I try and tell younger people is that, start investing in the market, stop spending so much money on stuff. It's not important. You think you have to have it and you use it one time and then it sits in the closet. So if you think about that, all those little bits of money add up to a lot of money that if you put in the stock market, it would grow. And so that, I'm sure that being 60 years old is not the sexiest thing in the world, but $1.4 million is pretty cool. And so, as a younger person, to build a portfolio of some money is a good thing.
Thank you so much for your advice
My
and
pleasure.
your time. Thank you so much.